So since you guys really enjoyed the last Forgotten Fragrances video, I thought I'd put together a second one for you today with another 15 Forgotten Fragrances. So these are not very hyped fragrances, or hyped brands I should say, and they're really, really great fragrances that I used to speak about at one time but forgotten about, and now I'm digging them up out from the back of the displays and the racks and the shelves and highlighting them for you today in this video. So find out about 15 forgotten fragrances that need to be rediscovered coming right up. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Sebastian. Yes, today we're talking about forgotten fragrances. These are great fragrances that I don't see a lot of people talking about. They've been around for some time, or some are fairly new and not really hyped, but they're really, really great fragrances that you guys need to get your nose on if you haven't, or need to pull your bottles back out if you have these fragrances. So if you haven't watched the previous video in this series, please go catch that. I have it linked in the info box. But let's go ahead and get started. We're going to the House of Parfums and NICOLAI first with Patchouli Intense, this one right here. So I'm the type of guy that really loves his patchouli fragrances, and generally the chocolate cakey kind, and this is exactly not that. Not that whatsoever. This to me is the greenest patchouli ever, and also very, very intense. It's called Patchouli Intense. Created by Patricia de Nicolai of this house, who is a relative of the Guerlain family. She has her own brand. And a very unique and very intense patchouli going into the green aromatic direction. It's patchouli in the end, the same kind of stuff that's in fragrances like Reminiscence Patchouli, Psychedelic by Javoy, Le Nereid's Patchouli, and so on and on and on. But this one is an overdose of aromatics. Loads of lavender, loads of geranium, along with this warm, spicy cinnamon note and rose. There's some citrusy touches, woods, amber, and vanilla. If you like that sort of thing, maybe you don't like the patchouli that's that chocolate cakey, earthy, ambery, balsamic, vanillic patchouli. Maybe you want the green aromatic kind. Then you must get your nose on Patchouli Intense from the House of Parfums and NICOLAI. Really great stuff. But the next fragrance I'm talking about also features patchouli, but it's been around longer than this, I believe. I could be wrong with the dates. This is going to an LVMH controlled brand. It's from the House of Fresh. It's Cannabis SANTAL, this one right here. This has gotten reformulated. I do have a vintage bottle in the square bottle, but this has gotten lighter, weaker, but the smell is really, really great. It's patchouli with cannabis, and so the cannabis is there, but not necessarily uber strong, smelling like pot or marijuana, but it's there. It's got that kind of greenness. It matches the patchouli quite a bit. Along with that, you've got dark chocolate, rose, plums, bergamot, orange, vetiver, vanilla, and musk. It really is a great fragrance. To me, this is not super potent. It's the light kind of patchouli. I like it. It's the kind of patchouli that you can overspray in the heat of the summer and still smell great. The dark chocolate is not so sweet. It's kind of a savory fragrance with some light sweetness. If you want to amplify this one, though, you can also boost it up with something like Molecule 1 Plus Patchouli from the House of Eccentric Molecules, and that will amplify the patchouli and intensify and extend the life of the fragrance. But it's a great fragrance on its own. It's Cannabis SANTAL from the House of Fresh. I really like that fragrance. I've been a fan since the early 2000s, and it's definitely a great one to have in your collection. One I forgot about, but glad to bring it back out today. Let me know if you're a fan of these two fragrances so far. Then moving on to the House of STARCK, or STARCK Paris, a brand after the designer Philippe Starck. This is Peau de Pierre, this one right here. Recently, I spoke about another one of these in an Annick Menardo video. This is a fragrance created by Daphne Bouget, and it's woods, smoke, and earthy notes. And I feel like there's vetiver here. They call it woods, and vetiver is a woody, earthy note to begin with, and definitely this one wears like I'm wearing a vetiver fragrance. It's quite bright. It's brightened up, but there's a density under there. The woods, the smoke, and the earthy notes kind of weigh it down. But when you first spray it, it's all fresh, and it reminds me of fragrances like a fresh citrusy take on vetiver fragrances. It's really, really great, but just be warned, it does get a little smoky and also earthy when it's drying down. But a wonderful fragrance. This is STARCK Paris. This is Peau de Pierre. probably my favorite in that collection of fragrances. There was the Annick Monardo, there was the Daphne Bouget, and then there was a Dominique Ropion on the first 3 fragrances they launched, and then there were a few other fragrances that I never got my nose on, which I should, but that is definitely one of my favorites from STARCK Paris. But moving on to La Parfumerie Moderne, this is right here, and this is No Sport. Are you guys familiar with this one? This brand is very underrated, and I don't know what's going on with the brand itself. They've been around for some time. This brand used to carry at Barney's in San Francisco, and that's where I first discovered it. Then I reviewed several of their fragrances, and this one was the latest discovery one to have in my collection, and I really like it. It's a nice name, catchy name, No Sport, and it utilizes kind of fresh notes, but in the end, it's all about rose. And you're going to notice that there's rose in this video quite a bit. Rose, geranium, hay, patchouli, vetiver, tobacco, almonds, and galbanum. It's a very aromatic, spicy take on rose. It comes off a bit stemmy. The green notes and the geranium create this kind of green stemminess here, and then you've got the earthiness of the patchouli and the vetiver woods and things like that. And there's some greenness with galbanum. It's a great fragrance. This one you can wear in the summertime because it's kind of a fresh, not a lot of warmth here, which is perfect for wearing when it's hot outside. But a wonderful offering. No Sport is great from this house. This is La Parfumerie Moderne, and it's No Sport. A wonderful fragrance that I had forgotten about that definitely needs to be rediscovered. Let me know if you're a fan of that house or that fragrance, or if this is your first time hearing about that brand. And kind of something similar, I think, with the last fragrance. This is from the house of ETRO, an Italian fashion house, and this is MANROSE, this one right here. I rarely speak about this brand because they used to have one fragrance, Vetiver, that I was obsessed with, really enjoyed. That got discontinued, but I bought a bunch of their other fragrances, and they've just been shelved up high, and I've forgotten about them. But this one's really great. Once again, kind of a green, aromatic, and spicy take on rose, and a masculine rose. This is a male-targeted release, but a woman can totally pull this one off as well. It's Turkish rose with geranium, just like the last fragrance. Geranium and rose kind of go together. There's a rosiness in geranium, and vice versa, so they complement one another here. That's what's going on with this fragrance. So it's very aromatic and herbal, and kind of spicy as well. There's cardamom, bergamot, Sichuan pepper, Elemi, incense, woods, vetiver, amber, leather, musk, patchouli. There's a lot of great stuff happening here. It wears pretty heavy, but not overly heavy. It's nice and perfectly balanced with all the notes, but it's all about the rose and the geranium and how they play wonderfully together with the spices, the woods, and the amber and everything else. So MANROSE from the house of ETRO. Let me know if you're a fan of that house. That's a male-targeted release. And then we've got a female targeted release here that I find quite beautiful to wear. Even I wear this one because it's really beautiful. It utilizes violet leaves, which tend to be generally on the male-leaning spectrum of fragrances, but it's here. This is La Perla Signature, this one right here. I really like the ozonic touches of the violet leaves against the Jasmine Sambac in here. So it's kind of floral, loads of white floral touches of the Jasmine Sambac, but the watery ozonic touches of the violet leaves kind of makes for an airy, kind of transparent wear when you're wearing this one. There's also woods, vetiver, there's a bit of a fruitiness from nectarine, citruses, mandarin, neroli, and cedar. It's a really great fragrance. Nobody talks about this fashion house. It's an Italian fashion house, I think it is. And they've launched some really exclusive line of fragrances, but I think this original Signature, which is what it's called, is one of their best and totally kind of unisex leaning, I think, especially for the fact that the violet leaves are here and it creates that kind of watery ozonic effect. Really wonderful stuff here. It's La Perla Signature. A wonderful offering that I'd forgotten about, but I think it's really great. But then we're moving on to a house called Ciro, a classic house that was folded, then brought back, and this is Chevalier de la Nuit, this one right here. Who's familiar with this house? This is a cheaper fragrance, and it's utilizing patchouli and really wonderfully here. Really awesome smelling patchouli with bitter orange, cloves, lemons, jasmine, vetiver, bourbon vanilla, eucalyptus, white musk, and sandalwood. This stuff smells so good. I'm going to go ahead and spray some on and let you guys know a little bit more about it because I have forgotten about this one definitely, and I'm not remembering it. But I think the patchouli definitely is highlighted. There's definitely an ambery touch under there for sure, even though they don't mention definitely these kind of notes. Orangey touch, Lots of spices with the cloves. So there's a little bit of a holiday-ish vibe, but it's in the end that patchouli that I really, really like. I feel like this particular video has turned out to be either patchouli or rose focused. But wonderful offering here. If you can get your hands on this one, really great patchouli with a bit of citrus oranginess, kind of sweet, and also some holiday-ish vibes running throughout it. But I feel like the vanilla comes in here and balances it out, and then the eucalyptus gives it a bit of a green camphoric edge to the fragrance. But you know, this is all about the patchouli and the orange together and the cloves. A match made in heaven notes. Freshened the patchouli freshened up, and then the cloves spices it up. Really wonderful. So this is Ciro Chevalier de la Nuit. A really great fragrance, a really wonderful chypre with patchouli. Patchouli lovers, get your nose on that one. It's super amazing. Moving on to a house called Abel or Abel. This is Grey Labdanum, this one right here. I don't know what's going on with this house. They used to be distributed here in the States. I don't know if they're still distributed. And I think it's an all-natural house as well. And they've got some really great fragrances. And this one's paying tribute to labdanum. Labdanum is that rock rose that is used to create a sticky paste resin. And it's used to combine with other resins and, you know, ambery notes and vanillic notes to create the amber accord. Here, once again, just like the Patchouli Intense, we're going into a green direction with this labdanum. So there's a kind of a green edge to this labdanum. So it's labdanum, patchouli, clary sage, grapefruit, bitter orange, and violet. And so it's the clary sage and the patchouli combined with the labdanum takes it into more of a green amber direction rather than a kind of a, you know, warm reddish orangish kind of amber, if that makes sense, because I always visualize ambers to be red orange, and then of course this one with those notes, the clary sage, the aromatic herbal touches, and the patchouli together with the labdanum creates a more of a greenish vibe. But it's a great take on labdanum. I feel like the labdanum is really, really top notch here, and a great smelling fragrance if you enjoy labdanum and fragrances. So this is Abel Grey Labdanum. A wonderful offering. Check it out if you don't know it. I think definitely deserves to be checked out. But again, I don't know what's going on with the brand. I see their Instagram posts here and there once in a while, but I don't know if they still have distribution in the States. So a fairly new house here that I'm discussing with you today in this video, an underhyped and forgotten. This is a fragrance I had received last year, and I completely forgot about this. And I've seen this brand selling at Printemps in Paris when I go there upstairs on their first floor, perfume floor. This is a brand called Antinomy, and it's Silence Eloquent, this one right here. And they have these wonderful little stickers on the back to kind of give you an idea of the fragrance. But this is a fragrance focusing on saffron with guaiac wood, amber, coffee, cyclamen, gurgeon balsam, sandalwood, amyris, and incense. So since it's fairly new to me, I wanted to go ahead and smell it on camera to give you my thoughts. Definitely, I remember the saffron being very, very prominent and also having a bit of a Middle Eastern vibe to the fragrance. And let's go ahead and sniff. Are you guys familiar with this fragrance? I don't think these fragrances are very, very expensive and definitely a nice budget line. But to me, this fragrance reminds me of some of the fragrances from Louis Vuitton for some reason. Something like their the Ombre Nomade kind of comes to mind with this one, and also a little bit of Nouveau Monde comes to mind, because it kind of reminds me of those fragrances. And I don't know if Jacques Cavalier was involved in the creation of these, but definitely the idea of some Louis Vuitton creations come to mind. It's definitely very Middle Eastern-esque, very woody, and also ambery and leathery, you know, spicy too. So this is from the house of Antinomy, Silence Eloquent. This is a wonderful offering. Check that out if you don't know it. And then moving on to the next fragrance, a fragrance that I was talking a lot about on my previous channel going back to like 2013, 2014. This is from the house of Boys 1920. This is Sushi Imperial, this one right here. Who's a fan of this one? I was really obsessed with this fragrance. I liked its kind of appley, warm spiciness, but not heavy, dense, because it was an eau de toilette fragrance. There was some stuff that happened with the brand, and they kind of fizzled away. And now I don't know if they're really having an easy time coming back and kind of making a statement with their fragrances. I don't know if their fragrances are distributed here anymore, but this particular fragrance, as I said, there's definitely kind of an apple pie-like vibe in here, even though they don't mention the note of apple, but there's lots of warm spices like cinnamon, nutmeg. There's also vanilla, mandarin orange. There's peppery touches, woodsy touches, and tonka and things like that. Really great fragrance. I wish it was more of an EDP to have a better performance, but the smell is really, really great. And it kind of falls into the category of things like Wajan, Ombre Narguilé, and things like that. Not identical, but kind of in that same ballpark. So this is Sushi Imperial from the house of Boys 1920. Then moving on to a house called Gear. This is Gear Nest for Men. This one right here. You know, I was a late discoverer of this one. I picked it up during the pandemic. I found a great deal on it. And then I forgot about it. But you know what? I came back to it. I'm looking at it again, smelling it, looking up notes and things like that. This fragrance does not smell like the notes whatsoever. They say there's floral notes, woods, citruses, green notes, and spices here. I get a very tropical, beachy vibe with this one. I don't know what it is. It's inspired by Norway, I believe. And so I don't get it. I don't get the smell, but I like the smell. I just don't think it's what the notes are. Let's go ahead and smell it a little bit. There's definitely something coconutty here, which gives me that kind of tropical beachy vibe. And that's pretty much it. I don't know if they've bottled this wrong. I don't know what the feminine version of this fragrance smells like. But to me, it smells nothing like the notes. I don't know. Maybe they make up this kind of beachy, kind of a fragrance, coconutty fragrance, with the notes they have. But what I'm getting with this fragrance, I really, really like. It's definitely a very unusual male-targeted release. Again, coconutty for sure. Very creamy, smooth. Not like woods and citruses and green notes and spices. Has anyone had that same experience with Gear Nest by Gear? Let me know. Put a comment down below. But I really like that, and I want to kind of wear it. And perhaps take that on a trip, because I think it's very simplistic and easy, but also very cozy, smooth, and creamy. So the next fragrance I'm going to talk to you about is from a house called Towerville. Tower Perfumes sister house. They used to have a whole series of flash fragrances, and now I believe the only two that are remaining are the Vanilla Flash and Rose Flash. And Rose Flash was the first one, and I'm highlighting that one here. Rose Flash was really, really great. I felt like it was kind of sort of similar to Aramis Calligraphy series rose fragrance, but different at the same time, but a very jammy, strong, intense rose fragrance with resins, woods, fruits, and amber. It's a very, very strong, concentrated, jammy rose here, and definitely very, very long-lasting. I think they started out at around $63 for a 30 ml, and then the price went up a little bit, but still, a little goes a long way with this, and if you're a rose lover, you've got to get your nose on this if you haven't already. So this is Rose Flash from the house of Towerville. Tower Perfumes sister house. Really, really great fragrance. I forgot about it, but I thought they were all discontinued, so I put them away. And recently I was at Ministry of Scent, and they were there, still selling, but only Rose Flash and Vanilla Flash. Let me know if you're a fan of these fragrances so far. Put a comment down below so I can find out. So 3 more fragrances left. Going to the house of I Profumi di Firenze. This is Vaniglia del Madagascar. This one right here. So this is a new bottle, and I believe from what I read, I bought this from their Florence boutique in Florence, and they told me that the fragrances in this bottle have gotten a little concentrated. But this is a fragrance I spoke about quite a bit on the channel a long, long time ago. It's very fluffy, marshmallowy vanilla with some floral notes and musky notes in there. It's very cozy. It does remind me a little bit of Indult's Tihota, but I think this one definitely has more of an amped up floralcy in it, whereas the other one is just vanilla and musk. This is kind of a floral take on vanilla, but it's super delicious, really, really cozy. One time I was speaking a lot about it. I've completely forgotten about them, and even though I brought this back from Florence last year, I've put it away and never came back to it. So I gotta wear it and figure it out, and see how this wears compared to the other version of the vanilla. I believe they still sell both of the Vaniglia del Madagascar or Vanilla del Madagascar. But is this really much more potent? Let me know. Are you a fan of this line? Put a comment down below so I can find out. But moving on to the house of Floricu. This is one umbrella for 2. This one right here. Now this is a fragrance house that has some really great fragrances. But there's something subdued about the fragrances. They're not really screamers. Very, very calm. but wonderful, wonderful smells. And this fragrance here smells super, super delicious. It's almost like a tea service with some sweets and pastries that you're having, like a high tea in the afternoon or, sometime during the day. It's blackcurrant tea, rice, cedar, white musk, and cyclamen. People say there's a blueberry-ish touch in here, a fruitiness or something, but super, super cozy, super delicious, really, really beautiful fragrance, just not an oomph, The brand seems to have these kind of subdued fragrances with the most amazing smells, and perhaps the brand is not getting hyped because of this reason. But this is one of their best, smells really, really delicious, really wonderful, and very cozy offering. This is one umbrella for two. Completely forgotten about it. Glad to have pulled it out. And then finally, Christian Louboutin Louis Rouge. At one time, I was talking a lot about these fragrances. I'm kind of bored about them. But Louis Rouge is really one of the best from this house with a few others. But the price is really, really high. This is a fragrance created by Marie Salamagna. Features notes of vanilla, iris, and cardamom. If you have been eyeing this fragrance and you thought maybe it was a little too expensive, she also created a fragrance called Lune Feline for Atelier des Ors. Not identical, but I feel like the DNA is there. She basically took Lune Feline and Iris Fauve from the same house and kind of combined them because she created the other two fragrances. And so I feel like this is a very powdery iris take on the vanilla. So the vanilla, the iris, and cardamom are really, really amped up. The cardamom and the vanilla are all in Lune Feline, and Iris Fauve is in the iris for sure. I think that's what it's called. I'm forgetting the name of the iris from Atelier des Ors. But if you like this and it's too expensive, look at the fragrance Lune Feline. You can find them at the discounters. And then also this one I believe is not necessarily 100 ml. So the other is 100, less expensive than this. And this is a 90 ml. But still, this is a really great smelling fragrance. I like that whole powdery vanillic thing and the whole reminder of Lune Feline. But either way, this is Louis Rouge from the house of Christian Louboutin. And that's the last forgotten fragrance for you guys. Let me know your thoughts on these fragrances. Are you a fan of them? Do you enjoy them? And what are some forgotten fragrances that you have forgotten about? What are some of the fragrances that you put them away, you forgot all about them, came back a couple years later, and you go, oh my God, I haven't worn this one in so long. Let me know. Put a comment down below so I can find out. And let me know also if you want to see a part 3 of this video. And we'll shoot it when I get around to it. But either way, guys, thanks so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions or comments, please list below. Please like this video. Please share it. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye.